Hello, Sisu Circle, and welcome to another episode of Who's the Baby, a podcast where me and my emotional support mug chat about everything inner child. On today's episode, we will be diving into the topic of boundaries, personal boundaries. This is a great topic for a lot of us, especially in this day and age, who seem to struggle with boundaries. So we'll dive into what they are, how we use them, how we interpret this in our brain, and how this relates to my world of family coaching. Stick around and find out. According to UC Berkeley, personal boundaries are the limits and rules we set for ourselves within relationships. It's very simple, as usual, right? Love a simple explanation. Let's deep dive. So, from an evolutionary standpoint, we were created to be communal animals, and boundaries basically are how we communicate or take action to feel safe within a relationship with others. Obviously, with every human or other animals that we come into contact with, we either perceive that interaction as threatening or non-threatening. So basically, it is our job's brain, from all of the input that it receives, to make that assessment of threat or no threat. How does it do this? So your brain, think about this as like your processor, okay, like a computer. It is receiving thousands upon thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of input into it every single second at a time. So we can talk about physical sensors. So your skin has a ton of sensors that it's receiving. Your eyes, all of what we call your senses, your five senses, basically are to give input to the brain, right? Because your brain doesn't have eyes of its own. It is taking every bit of your sense, your taste, your feels, your sight, your hearing, and it is building a picture in the processor to create a picture of what this looks like. Also, what it's doing at the very same time of every new situation that you're thrown into, it's sorting through its little past existence filing cabinet and saying, is there a situation where we've been close to this where I can reference, or am I going completely off of new information? Meanwhile, it's doing all of this in literally nanoseconds, which is absolutely incredible. It's amazing. Take a second, close your eyes, and think about a time when you knew there was a storm coming. Let's talk about all the things made it so that you knew that a storm was coming. For example, you might be able to feel on your skin the wind sort of pick up, okay? You can see the clouds, the dark clouds rolling in from a ways away. Sometimes there's a certain taste in the air. You can taste the moisture. You can also smell the moisture. It sort of smells like rain. It smells like there's water in the air. So all of this is all this information is going up to your brain. Your brain is sorting through all of this information, going off to this little filing cabinet and saying, yeah, we've been here before. We know what this is. It's a storm. A storm's coming. Then, in addition to, your brain is also saying, is this a threat or non-threat situation? Depending on where you are, what you're doing in said storm, it could be very threatening, right? So once we have determined there is a threat miss, how do we resolve this? So there's two ways we can do that. You can communicate or you can take action. For example, I have a large personal space bubble. Always have. With that, sometimes I either have to communicate my need or my boundary and say, this doesn't feel right in my head, right? And then communicate, would you mind taking a step back? I have a pretty large personal space bubble. Or I can take action. I can simply take a step back out of that threatening situation. Now, whether or not it is actually on a conscious level threat, your brain doesn't really sort that out. It doesn't really need to get into that, right? This is focusing more on the subconscious level. So, a person standing next to me, is that a threat? 99% of the cases, probably not. But like I said, with your brain trying to get this information out so quickly, it perceives it as such in a very quick, responsive way. So what happens with many of us, especially those who may struggle with setting appropriate boundaries, is we have ignored this signal enough times that your brain basically turns off your notifications like a phone. So why would this particular instance be perceived as a threat in terms of safety, in terms of protection, in terms of, not knowing the person or, the situation? Maybe it's a new environment that you're in. It's pretty much just a safety signal. My brain tells me, do something about this. You don't like it. You don't like it. It's going to start to do things to make you react in a certain way. So I can start to feel this anxious feeling, this intuition, the sort of butterflies in my stomach to say, yeah, threat, threat. My heart rate might start to go up. I might do exactly that. Take a deep breath, right? Because I'm getting ready for my fight or flight reaction. My brain sort of switches to that sympathetic nervous system, that fight or flight. And again, this isn't a real versus non-real in a logical form. This is completely subconscious. So this happens without me even generally being aware that it's happening until I start feeling the feels of what might be the deep breath, holding my breath. This is a fight response, right? Or a freeze response. It's my body is responding to the information based on the input that it was given subconsciously. What happens with people who might not exercise great boundaries is that you have ignored these threat signals for long enough that your brain turns off these notifications. So it can either get very confused and say, well, I sent out threat notifications like, forever ago, and you just ignored it. And so I turned that off. I just desensitized that. Or it can lead you to a path of your brain sort of, did I mix that up? Did I get that wrong? Is this never a threat anymore? I'm not quite sure. Your brain does love to pattern things. So if there is knowledge from a previous experience, it is going to use it. It is going to fill in those gaps, whether or not everything might be true here. And that's why you have that response. So for me, in that situation of a personal space invasion, if you will, it's most likely a non-threatening situation. However, my brain just doesn't really know the difference, and it tells me, threat, threat, threat. You better either communicate that or take a step back. A lot of the times, our conscious brain then gets sort of stuck or gets the information and says, whoa, well, you are going to be perceived a certain type of way if you respond in this way. So let's maybe turn that off, or let's maybe stifle that a little bit. Yeah, because that's rude, right? So a lot of people with not great personal boundary being able to communicate or take action on them are using interjection, right? Your just brain is interjecting on that reaction, saying, whoa, 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 whoa. This isn't really about me, right? It's about them. And I don't want to be perceived any certain way. So I'm just going to be here and be uncomfortable. And I'm just going to sit here in my discomfort rather than just communicating. Would you mind taking a step back, or you personally taking the step back? Okay. And this is a very, very vague general scenario. Okay. I'm just using this off the top of my head here. Obviously, as things get more big to us or more important on the priority list to us, the bigger the reaction is going to be within your head. And like I said, the issue is that sometimes people struggle with the perception of the other person. So they would rather say, I don't want to possibly make that person uncomfortable, or I don't want to come off as rude or unwelcoming. So I'm just gonna keep quiet and sit here with a funny face on instead of just communicating what I need. So I do want to say that everybody has boundaries. It's not whether or not we have them or not. Everybody has them. It's just how often we practice using them. And clearly, the more practice we have with them, the more accustomed to and confident we become to using them and expressing them. So let's talk about how we might be able to implement some of these things. You really have to take some time and reflect. Reflect on, what are your boundaries? How do I feel when certain things happen? Why am I perceiving certain things as threats? Let's kind of take a deep dive. So you do have to kind of sit with those feelings, and I would say intentionally or consciously think about it, and or meditate. Meditation is a way that you can break through your conscious brain into your subconscious and see if you can pull some things out, or at least get to the root cause or a root situation in there. Some people, that's been extremely helpful. But then, I mean, you really have to just practice using that little muscle, and that's going to take some discomfort, right? I would say the way you can sort of gain confidence in expressing those boundaries is really within understanding your own personal values. It helps, gives you that little confidence boost of like, well, it's not just me, it's my value. Or it's not just because I'm being rude, it's my value, right? So for me, like, safety is a huge importance to me. Safety and security are very, very high on my list of values. So if I feel like someone has crossed a safety and security boundary, yeah, I have to kind of get good at communicating that and or taking action on that. Obviously, they're designed for me to feel safe and for my body to feel good and safe. So I'm going to drop into my body space and honor whatever it is it needs. Let's talk about what different types of boundaries exist. So there are mental boundaries, physical boundaries, emotional boundaries. There's also boundaries that we can get super specific on that I'm not going to really talk about today. Sexual boundaries, financial boundaries. So those, most of those relate obviously when you're in a relationship with someone, right? Or intellectual boundaries, things like that. Today, what I really want to get into more is the physical, emotional, sort of mental boundaries. So, how this relates to my world of coaching and specifically family coaching. If you are a human that has struggled with using and setting boundaries in the past, chances are you are going to pass that trait down to your children. And reason being is obviously we learn a lot of the time from our perception. We learn from others. We learn being intuitive beings, and we mimic whatever example we were given. So children who don't have great boundaries, it's likely their parents never taught them what boundaries look like or how they work or any of that. So it's not a blame game on any parents who you may struggle with your own personal boundaries, but this is a chance for you to kind of assess and decide if this is something you'd like to work on or not. What I would also recommend is, once you have those set of values that you've kind of decided on for yourself, is having a great self-care plan, right? So taking the time to really get to know those values and be able to express what they mean to you and how they show up in your life and how you want to assert them into your life. That will also help you be better at practicing those boundaries. And once you sort of get through the uncomfortable level, it's all about habit forming, right? So the more you do it, the more you practice, the better at it you'll be, the better example that your children will have and see for them, for their life moving forward. So it can be challenging with children as well, because for someone who might not know their own personal boundaries, if your child is doing something that is triggering a boundary break essentially for you, and you don't know how to communicate or take action on that, that can be misleading to your child, and they might really struggle with their response to that. For example, my kid, for whatever reason, when she's trying to show me something, loves putting something like directly in front of my face for me to see it. It's just, that's where she thinks I can see it. And for me, that is just so triggering, because maybe that's that personal space bubble thing that I can't see anything else around me that really, really bothers me. And maybe that's a safety and security trigger for me. But for her, if I kind of have this angry look on my face, or I take this deep breath of, oh, like get that out of my face, but I don't actually say that or do anything about it. I just kind of ignore that signal. I just ignore my body's response to it. She's still feeling the frequencies that I'm giving off. She's still feeling my aggressive, my like to that, right? My tension, if you will. And she's now perceiving this environment and perceiving this information like, whoa, what just happened? What did mom just do? She might not be consciously aware of it right now at the moment, but yeah, you better believe that she is listening, if you will. She's receiving all the input and that's getting sent up to her processor, and now she's like, whoa, what the heck is that? Or if my message isn't consistent, right, in whatever my response is, she's probably like, well, where's the line? Like, I don't know how to handle this situation anymore, because sometimes you react this way and other times you react this way, and sometimes you don't react at all, and now I don't know what to do and I don't know where the boundary is, and I'm really all confused. So, not to scare anyone, but everything we do, our behavior, our, sort of responses, even if it's a triggered response and an unconscious response, is still a response that our children are learning from. So anything that we can do to get more suited to understanding those things about ourselves, the better we will be when those situations occur within our children, within our families. All right, from me and my emotional support mug. See you on the other side.